Tuesday, June 19th, 1990. I'm David Carter, Speaker of the House and member for Calgary-Egmont. After question period this afternoon, the House will be dealing with written questions followed by motions for return. And then later in the afternoon, they will probably move to the discussion of a motion dealing with housing and rent reviews within the province. A motion is sponsored by the member for Edmonton-Beverly. At the moment, there are 5 bills at second reading, 14 committee of the whole stage, and 18 at third reading. This evening, the House will sit probably from 8 o'clock until about midnight, dealing with some second readings and third readings of bills. Let us pray. Each day in this place, each one of us is expected to face the ongoing challenge of representing the concerns of all Albertans. May God grant us strength and wisdom to carry out our responsibilities. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't expect it to come so quickly. I have 2 items to table today, Mr. Speaker. I would like, first of all, to table today answers to written questions 296, 237, and 338. Mr. Speaker, I also have the honor today to table with the Legislative Assembly a document entitled Thanks from Alberta Environment. This document, Mr. Speaker, contains the results of the first stage of a public consultation program leading to new environmental laws for Alberta. I will have more to say during a ministerial statement following introduction of special guests. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Introduction of special guests.
Member for Edmonton Jasper, please.
Speaker, I wish to table 3 copies of amendments from the official opposition to Bill 52.
Honourable member, we do have to go back through another procedure because the chair looked around. The next item of business was called. Do we have unanimous consent to revert to tablings? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Edmonton Jasper, please.
I wish to file 3 copies of 14 amendments to Bill 52 on behalf of the official opposition. These will make the bill one that Albertans can truly be proud of. I also would like to table, while I'm on my feet, 3 copies of a letter to the city editor of the Edmonton Journal from Daishawa, Canada, regarding the issue of licensing Daishawa.
Introduction of special guests.
Member for Three Hills.
Mr. Speaker, it's my privilege today to introduce 3 gentlemen who are up in Edmonton working on behalf of their community of Trochu. I'd ask them to stand as I introduce them. Mayor Alan Gehring, Tim Peterson, who's the town administrator, and Dick Somerville, who looks after economic development. I'd ask all members to give them a traditional welcome.
Ministerial statements.
Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, moments ago, I was very pleased to release to table with the legislature the results of the first stage of public consultation leading to comprehensive new environmental legislation for Albertans. In January of this year, the government released the government's environmental mission statement covering 10 basic principles and some 30 related policies. This document, Mr. Speaker, was mailed to more than 25,000 Albertans, and a further 10,000 requested a copy. Since then, the responses to those documents have been used, along with other initiatives, to draft new laws for Albertans. I'm pleased to say that the responses continue to come in, and we will continue to use them as the public consultation process proceeds. The document tabled today with the Legislative Assembly is a summary of what Albertans told us about their environmental vision. The comments have been organized around the environmental principles contained in the January mission statement. As well, a complete listing of all the comments is available in Alberta Environment's library. Mr. Speaker, Albertans were candid. They were honest and forthright about the directions they would like the government to take to protect, improve, and wisely use our environment. Their comments were critical as well as complimentary, and this is therefore an honest document that reflects Albertans' views on their environment. So on behalf of our Premier, I want to thank the thousands of Albertans that responded to our invitation to participate in this process. I also want to assure Albertans that the draft legislation that will be tabled very soon in this Assembly will reflect their comments. The release of this document today, entitled Thanks from Alberta Environment, marks another milestone in the 5-stage public consultation process that was announced in January. The actual draft legislative package will be released very soon, and Albertans will have the opportunity to review it over the summer and provide us with their comments in a more formal public consultation process this fall. Mr. Speaker, this process will result in the passage of revamped environmental protection and enhancement legislation next spring. This legislation will incorporate the views of both stakeholders and the general public, and we are confident that it will be the most comprehensive environmental legislation in all of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Highlands.
Mr. Speaker, I point out to the Minister, who, by the way, I thank for prior notice of the ministerial statement, that there's a real difference between comprehensive and effective. And let me just point out one single example of the distinction, Mr. Speaker. His statement says that the legislation will incorporate the views of, quote, both stakeholders and the general public. Now, it goes on for other things. The point, Mr. Speaker, is the general public are the stakeholders, and the sooner this government understands that there's no distinction between the two, the sooner they'll be guided to drafting good legislation, which I do hope follows the ministerial statement and the tabling of the responses from Albertans. But in the meantime, Mr. Speaker, if they're going to introduce this legislation and let it sit over, which is a good process, I can hint at another couple of bills that would be worthy of sitting over for public deliberation. He might also consider, first of all, opening up the second proposal by ALPAC for thorough public review. How about the Diashawa license? How about Wellwood, Mr. Speaker? Procter & Gamble, I'd wonder if he'd like to eat the fish that are swimming around in the effluent outside of there. The NRCB, the bill that he wasn't even allowed to introduce, the Natural Resources Conservation Board, and maybe even game ranching. You know, I really hope, in the best interests of Albertans, that this minister comes up with really good, thorough, and effective legislation to make the environment the first and top priority, not only of the government, but of all members of the Assembly, Mr. Speaker. But until there's goodwill on these other matters, it's hard to believe that the legislation he says is going to be so thorough will in fact be as effective as it should be.
Oral question period.
Edmonton Highlands.
Well, on the subject of environment, Mr. Speaker, I see today that the president of it's not Bow Valley Resources anymore, it's another shell game, I guess, must be Bow Bar now, has come to the government saying that they need whining for $50 million more so that they can expand their toxic waste disposal plant, Mr. Speaker. Now this, I remind you, is the company that gets all the profits and takes none of the risks, whether financial or environmental, in the great deal that it got by its creation a few years back from the Lougheed government. Well, Mr. Speaker, it isn't just the $50 million they want. They also want the government to lift its ban on the importing of toxic waste in Alberta so that they can make more money. Taxpayers take the risk, company makes the money. Good deal, right? Well, I'd like to ask this minister this. Will he commit now to all Albertans that he is not going to allow this company to belly up to the trough one more time for public dollars for their endeavors?
Well, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, the honourable member is missing the point. The point is that that Alberta is the only province in Canada with the capability of decontaminating property and disposing of those wastes. I think that that's the point to remember in this whole situation. Now, with respect to expansion of the plan, I don't know where the honourable member was, because certainly this was announced and made quite clear, and there was full debate on it during estimates. There's no secret. This is no great announcement by the Edmonton Journal or the Calgary Herald today. This was a plan that was announced some months ago, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I didn't suggest for a minute that it was a secret. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, I also remember year after year the Lougheed government promising the people of Alberta that this plant would never, I repeat, never be used to import toxic waste from outside the province, Mr. Speaker. It was a promise. Grant Notley called them on this, and he made them promise. Now it looks like they're ready to back down, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask the minister why it is that he's being such a pushover for this company that's making all the profits, raking it in, while the taxpayers and the people of Alberta suffer the risk. Why is he being such a pushover?
Well, no one's being a pushover. I think, if anything, this government had the courage and the foresight and the commitment to forge ahead to do something no other province has been able to do in this country. I think that that's a remarkable achievement. A remarkable achievement. Now, I guess the honourable member would like to have this scenario prevail. The scenario where there are toxic wastes, wastes that contaminate the beautiful Northwest Territories, wastes that are gathered up, wastes that are driven all the way through Alberta to the state of Oregon, that pass within miles of Swan Hills. Is that the kind of situation the honourable member would like to see persist? I would like to be in a position of saying we have a responsibility to the country, to our neighbours. We have a responsibility to our neighbors, especially our neighbors in the Northwest Territories, who have to drive their toxic waste all the way through the province of Alberta. All the way through the province of Alberta, where they could easily stop at Swan Hills and dispose of those wastes quite safely. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, nothing will be done until there has been full discussion with my colleagues in government, and full discussion with the people in Swan Hills, and full discussion with Albertans.
Mr. Speaker, the minister asked what it is that I expected. I'd like to answer that question. I expect for once for this Conservative government to keep its word to the people of Alberta. Mr. Speaker, will the minister tell us now why it is that he would even consider bringing the hopes and prayers of his favored company to cabinet, asking for approval of this expansion and the money that goes with it, instead of the concerns of the people of Alberta and the taxpayers of Alberta?
That's right.
Well, how quickly the socialists changed their tune, because I can recall a year ago standing on a podium with the honourable minister for Jasper Place, when the whole question of taking the PCBs from Saint-Basile-le-Grand was discussed, and your honourable colleague stood up and said, I think that this is the right thing for Alberta to do, to take those wastes from Quebec, to take those wastes from Quebec. Now, what an about turn we now see, but so typical of the socialists.
Second main question, Edmonton Highlands.
Still can't be trusted, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to designate the second question to the member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, my questions are to the Minister of Occupational Health and Safety. And this being Occupational Health and Safety Week in Canada, it's only appropriate that we think back a few months ago to the 16 workers and their families who suffered lead poisoning in Medicine Hat. And as such, I would remind the minister of his flimsy, unsigned so-called report into this case, which he filed in the House on April the 2nd, stated that there's no reason to believe that there are any serious effects now occurring in anyone, including children, and that there is no indication that further treatment of anyone is required. So my question to the minister is, can he tell us what, if any, follow-up he or his department has done to monitor the health status of those workers and those children?
Mr. Speaker, there's been quite a bit of follow-up, and as a matter of fact, the whole situation is still under investigation, and I hope to have that report very, very shortly, and then we'll analyze it and see where we go from there.
Well, Mr. Speaker, maybe the minister's impressed with his record, but the people of Alberta aren't, particularly the families of the workers who are poisoned. And so it may come as some news to the minister, but the government is now about to be served as a defendant in a $7 million lawsuit alleging negligence of his department, brought on behalf of the children of one of the workers. So I'd ask the minister now, given that these children have suffered serious and likely permanent disablement affecting their growth and mental development, would the minister table in the House the information that he has had, which formed the basis of his flimsy report's recommendations here?
Mr. Speaker, the families of all those involved and all workers, past, present, and everybody else has been talked to by Occupational Health and Safety, and they will continue talking to these people until we have the report and the investigation completed. And once that is completed, we will then analyze the report and see what actions we have to take, and that'll be done very, very shortly.
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the unresolved issues was how 16 visits could be made by OHS officials to the plant, and still 16 people are lead poisoned. And so I want to ask the minister one more time, will he finally do the right thing and launch a public inquiry to find out why the visits of his department fail to protect the health of these workers and their children, or are workers in this province now going to have to launch legal actions to get him to do his job?
Mr. Speaker, it seems that every time the honourable member has a question, he has to scream and holler, and I hear very well, and I don't think he has to do that. But, Mr. Speaker, when the investigation is completed, and it will be shortly, we'll have talked to everyone. We will have all the information we need. We will then turn that information over, if it's valid, to the Attorney General for prosecution, if that's the case. And the full results of that investigation will be made public. But until then, until I have the report, we can't answer those questions.
Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, graduate students at the University of Alberta contribute to the status and reputation of that university as being one of the best in Canada, a reputation which is in danger of being eroded. Government underfunding of all universities has caused the University of Alberta Board of Governors to take the desperate measure of increasing the continuous registration fee for graduate students by 378% starting this September. This scrounging for funds on the part of the University of Alberta clearly illustrates the impossible position that this government has placed the universities in. My question is to the Minister of Advanced Education. Does the minister recognize that this increase is only one of many increases that graduate students living on fixed incomes, limited incomes, often with young families, are faced with?
Mr. Speaker, I don't need to remind the honourable member that the funding of our post-secondary system is amongst the richest in Canada. This government and this minister controls the increase in tuition fees at the undergraduate level. We're of the view, Mr. Speaker, that students within the system have a vested interest, vested financial interest, to see that they bear their fair share of the cost of the post-secondary education. It's my view and the view of the government, Mr. Speaker, that this year's funding for the University of Alberta and the other 28 institutions is sufficient to realize their objectives.
Mr. Speaker, I believe that graduate students also share the concept that they must pay part of the cost, but 378% increase in 1 year seems a bit ridiculous. Will the minister finally admit that the boards of governors are being placed in an untenable position of having to make decisions such as these which have a negative impact on all students in the province because of government underfunding?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the matter of graduate students, of which by policy the U of A is allowed to have 6% of their enrollment at 6% foreign students and graduate students, that's within their area of responsibility. I would think, based on comments I've heard to date with the bill that's before the House 27, the minister should not be encroaching on the boards of governors. I would think that if the boards of governors have a position with regard to graduate student increases, they'd have contacted me, but to date I've not heard anything.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the minister if he's willing to stand up to his big brother from Lethbridge and start advocating for the students in the post-secondary institutions in this province.
Mr. Speaker, if by inference the honourable member is inferring that the provincial treasurer is my brother, if that's the case, we obviously had different mothers and fathers. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the representation from the honourable member for Calgary tonight to see that the post-secondary system gets its fair share of the provincial budget, and I'll certainly endeavour to do my best next time I'm before the Treasury Board.
Calgary Glenmore, followed by Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the past few years and months, Albertans, and especially Calgarians, have had accessibility to open bidding process of local goods and services through our government. However, they have expressed that they don't have that same opportunity with the federal government, and those living in central Canada seem to have more accessibility to federal contracts. While attending a procurement development mission in Calgary during December, the Minister of Supply and Services Canada, Mr. Paul Dick, announced that his department was moving ahead with plans to acquire a large amount of goods and services for the federal government through the open bidding process. And to the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, is the government of Alberta prepared to assist Alberta companies to take advantages of these situations?
Yes, we are, Mr. Speaker, and I should point out to the honourable member that because of the pressure of the Alberta government in working in conjunction with Alberta companies, we have met with modest success, whereby now the federal government has given a commitment to move to more of an open bidding process, and they've also given a commitment whereby we in Alberta will increase our share of federal procurement. We've continued to pressure for greater equity. We have met with some modest success, but we are going to continue to work with the private business sector as the process is ongoing.
Mr. Speaker, can the minister please give us an example of how Alberta companies are being made aware of this process and the opportunities?
Mr. Speaker, over the last number of months, we have conducted some 14 procurement development seminars throughout the province in conjunction with the federal minister that the honourable member has mentioned. We have worked closely in providing greater information to the private business community. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, we have recently tied into a Western business network, which we do offer through the computer system purchasing information to the private business community, and in the event that they tie into that, they have greater access not only to the procurement that is available through us as provincial governments, but also at the federal government level.
Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Thursday, the Minister of Labour failed to respond to my call for action against the author of the Maxim Memo, a document that clearly counsels employers to violate the Labour Code. It's been 2 weeks, Mr. Speaker, since I provided the Minister with information showing Mr. Willard Kirkpatrick as the author of the diatribe that urges discrimination against pro-union workers. Will the Minister advise the Assembly whether or not she is prepared to prosecute the author of this memo to the full extent permitted by the Labour and criminal codes?
Mr. Speaker, I've now had an opportunity to see the material that the honourable member opposite has provided, and let me itemize what it is. Number one is a photocopy of a document purporting to be, well, in fact, it is photocopied on what purports to be letterhead from Maxim. Secondly, we have a photocopy of a handwritten letter, apparently a draft, with no signature on it whatsoever. Thirdly, we have the allegations of the member opposite. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me try for a moment to elucidate for the member opposite what is in the nature of proof. In the nature of proof, you have to establish the actual authorship of a document. Normally, you do not do this with photocopies. Normally, you do not do it in this House. Normally, what you would do is produce the person who is presumably this member's source of information, and secondly, presumably, you would produce the actual originals of these documents. And thirdly, normally, you would produce the circumstances in which these documents have come to light. Now, having said all of that, none of which the member opposite has done, notwithstanding that I've asked him to do so, and the material he gave me last Thursday is not what I asked him for 2 weeks ago, but notwithstanding all of that, I am still very concerned that somebody, whether it be from that company or from somebody outside that company, with somebody with some axe to grind, it is impossible to tell. Notwithstanding all of that, Mr. Speaker, I am looking at the matter very seriously because there are allegations of at least an attitude that is simply not tolerated in this province, and that is one which would deny individuals in this province their constitutional, their charter rights, and their absolute right that we uphold in this government to have a collective agreement and to collectively bargain, and in fact to pursue the union option if they wish to do so.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that is part of the offensiveness about being in this legislature. You start to be hypocritical and you pontificate. Mr. Speaker, at one point...
Thank you, honourable member. Order. There's no need for that since the chair ruled on those comments last night. We really don't need it being brought back into question period. So would you like to ask the question without that kind of...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will.
In Belmont in a moment when Edmonton Highlands is quiet enough. Thank you, Edmonton Belmont.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the one hand, we've got nurses and social workers who immediately are suspect and have actions brought against them, and yet we have employers that when they do something wrong, we have paralysis in the government. And Mr. Speaker, I've anticipated that paralysis, and I've done some of the minister's work, and I'm now prepared to provide her with an opinion from a forensic document examiner that confirms the authorship of the memo. Mr. Speaker, it's a simple question. When might we expect some action on this matter?
Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite has some evidence, which I've been asking for 2 weeks, I have asked him to share this with me. It is hardly the matter for this House to determine. There are channels where these matters should be considered, and if he has any further evidence, and let me stress in a very legally specific manner the word evidence, as in proof, and not simple politicking and not simple allegations, then let him bring it to me. Why grandstand in the House? The member should in fact be down in my office 2 weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, with the actualities that he's presenting rather than allegations and making politics in this House.
Edmonton Whitemud. Mr. Speaker, initialed Samsonite briefcases for government MLAs, a trip to Japan, pre-allocated community facility enhancement program dollars to Tory ridings, insufficient accountability of lottery dollars, and who knows what else, Mr. Speaker.
Sounds like Tammany Hall.
I have a fear that lottery sales might decline because members of the public are concerned at the spending abuse of lottery revenue by the minister responsible. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that the minister shares this concern, recently demonstrated by defensive moves such as letters to newspapers and snide remarks at various volunteer functions. And a street named after him in Swan Hills yet. Mr. Speaker,
That's the one going
to the minister responsible for lotteries, what steps is the minister prepared to take to ensure that lottery sales do not drop as a result of the public's perception of irresponsible management of lottery revenues?
Irresponsible.
Mr. Speaker, lottery sales are continuing at the normal level that we would anticipate it for 1990, and irrespective of the statements being put forward by the member from Edmonton Whitemud, there's absolutely no suggestion at all that in fact sales are in any way but going up. I do want to thank the member, though, for letting everyone in Alberta know that recently the town of Swan Hills did name a street after me. I thought that was a very significant honor, Mr. Speaker, and I want to assure the honourable member and all of my colleagues as well that the town of Swan Hills and the people of Swan Hills did it out of goodwill, and there was absolutely no suggestion that I had given them anything in return for it. I felt very humbled as a result of that.
Mr. Speaker, that's the street in Swan Hills full of potholes. Mr. Speaker, to provide the necessary confidence and to ensure that the public do not have any misconceptions about lottery spending, will the minister now abide by the recommendations of the Auditor General and for once and for all to do things right?
Mr. Speaker, it's really of significant interest that as I hold in my hand right now is a document that was filed here in the Legislative Assembly a few days ago. It's a document put forward by the Alberta Foundation for the Performing Arts, one of some 20 groups in the province of Alberta that is a beneficiary of lottery funding. The unfortunate suggestion being put forward by the member from Whitemud is that in fact that there's something unsavory happening with respect to the lottery fund. Mr. Speaker, I hold this report. This report was tabled by my colleague, the minister responsible for the Alberta Foundation for the Performing Arts. All expenditure levels with respect to lottery allocations are tabled in this House. It's regrettable as well that the member from Whitemud continues not to avail himself of the opportunities to appear in this Legislative Assembly when an opportunity is provided for all members to attend such important meetings as the Committee on Public Accounts. I was here recently, Mr. Speaker. I brought along all necessary officials with me. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I was not able to provide all of the necessary comments that I wanted to make with respect to all of the expenditure levels because some members of the opposition denied me that opportunity to provide that information, Mr. Speaker. It's in the record. It's in the Hansard, Mr. Speaker. It's in the minutes of the Committee on Public Accounts. I note that the member from Calgary Buffalo was there. He raised questions on behalf of lottery fund. I noted, Mr. Speaker, that the member from Edmonton Whitemud bothered not to attend that very important meeting when the minister responsible was prepared to answer any and all questions. And further to that, Mr. Speaker, also conveyed at that moment in time that I would be prepared to provide any additional information that could not have been provided at that time. It is unfortunate, it's regrettable, but it's understanding. The member chooses to play the game that he chooses to play, Mr. Speaker, and that's very unfortunate.
Innisfail. Speaker, this year we've had a wide range of weather conditions throughout the province. In fact, one day last week we had a forecast of snow in Banff, heavy rains in west central Alberta, and a dust storm in east central Alberta. In the Innisfail area, the farmers have had a very difficult time seeding their crops. My question is to the Associate Minister of Agriculture. Due to the excess amount of rain in parts of Alberta, will the minister consider extending the seeding deadline for all-risk crop insurance?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member is very accurate. We've had an unusual spring in our province. We've had extreme moisture on really one side of the province, stretching from the Peace to indeed the border to the south, and we've had erosion and loss of seeding from high winds in the east. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, that the members of the legislature, such as the member for Innisfail, has certainly made representations on behalf of the producers in that area to the minister and myself regarding their plight. And we have taken that request to the Alberta Hail and Crop Insurance Corporation Board of Directors, who are the people that would make those decisions. And I am pleased to tell the member and others that the Board of Directors have made the decision to extend the seeding deadline from June the 20th to June the 25th this year. I would also
like to mention, Mr. Speaker, incidentally, that the ability to do this is due to the enhanced crop insurance program that we were able to bring forward this year.
Thank you. The producers in my area, I know, will be pleased with that announcement. My supplementary, is this extension for all of Alberta and for all crops?
Mr. Speaker, the member brings forward a very important point. The extension and deadline does apply to the province. However, the crops that would be possibly insurable under that deadline are early maturing varieties of barley and Polish-type canola. And I would caution all producers to continue to check with their respective regional or district offices as to their seeding intentions. I would also want to point out, Mr. Speaker, that in order to have the ability to insure those crops that I mentioned, barley and canola, they must have elected those crops for seeding under their crop insurance contract.
Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are for the Minister of the Environment. When I asked him yesterday about samples of trout and whitefish caught in Alberta rivers, which are above the Health and Welfare Canada guideline for human health consumption safety standards, the Minister said in Hansard, I quote, "We don't know what the situation is officially." And again on page 1967 he said, "We as a government are also waiting for the same information that he's waiting for," referring to myself. Now, I do appreciate the open-mindedness of the Honourable Minister, but I wonder if you would answer this question. If you don't know what the situation is, and if you're waiting for the same information as I am, what in the world are you doing licensing Daishawa to dump additional tons of organic chloride pollution this month? And why has he said that he is satisfied that Alpac can go ahead and dump even more organic chloride?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have a totally different situation with respect to Daishoa. Daishoa is a state-of-the-art mill, a state-of-the-art mill. And we're talking about fish samples, as I understand it, that were collected on the Athabasca River. There was only one Bleachcraft mill operating at that particular time. It was operating for the most part under the old standards, and it was an old mill at that particular time, and that was the Wellwood Mill. It has since been upgraded. So we're talking about mills that were putting into the river far more chlorinated organics than they would be putting into the river today. With respect to the situation as it affects the fish being studied by Health and Welfare Canada, we're waiting now to hear from Health and Welfare Canada, and if that agency deems that there is a health hazard, they will inform us, and a health advisory will be issued. If they say that everything is okay, then I guess nothing more need be done.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's still the old game of moving pollution around from one plant to another without ever considering whether maybe we have too much pollution already. Right. And I wonder with respect to Daishawa, because they're about to begin a new program of dumping, Daishawa wrote, I quote, "Daishawa Canada had originally understood through discussions with Alberta Environment that drafts of their licenses to operate under the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts would be made available for public comment before they were issued." Now, it seems like even Daishawa was double-crossed by this minister. In view of their expectation there'd be a public review of their license, we now reconsider his position in the light of this new information and order a public review of the Daishawa license.
With respect to Daishawa, Mr. Speaker, I'll say it again. It's probably the cleanest mill in the world using the Bleachcraft technology. They have achieved the highest standards achievable in the world today. Now, I can't understand this member's fascination with Daishawa. I'm still waiting to hear from him as to when he's going to go with his colleague up to Hinton, which has a similar kind of mill, stand up at a town hall meeting and say, "Close the mill down."
Right. Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government assures the province that all Albertans have access to health care. But some rural communities have to live with the ongoing anxiety that the closest emergency treatment service is several kilometers away, often on treacherous highways. That's not what I consider equal access, Mr. Speaker. The community of Canuso has been receiving needed emergency service for over 50 years through the local health unit. Last year, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Health allowed the local health unit to remove this active treatment component and left the 1,500 citizens of Canuso without any emergency treatment care. Now, we all understand the present situation, the difficulty of trying to keep professional health care people in rural communities. Then my question to the Minister of Health, Mr. Speaker, is does the closure of the active treatment component in Canuso signal a move to restrict the practice of the community health nurse working in remote areas? What's the plan, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Speaker, the plan is multifaceted, and it certainly doesn't involve a simple answer to one simple question posed by the honourable member. This is certainly a government that has taken great efforts to ensure the opportunity for access, both with respect to building a marvelous infrastructure across this province, which is a little different view than perhaps members of the Liberal Party might take with respect to building of health care facilities. We've taken the position of putting a new ambulance act into the legislature, which will deal with the issue of pre-hospital care, and ultimately to the delivery of service to individuals across the province using health resources in the best possible way. That's not just for Canuso, that's for all Albertans. That is the aim, and that is, quite frankly, something, Mr. Speaker, that I think all Albertans can be proud of in the overall scheme.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary, the Minister has indicated in correspondence that the Minister believes that treatment clinics staffed by nursing practitioners like Canuso are a problem rather than an answer to the needs of smaller and rural communities. The Minister has also indicated to the village of Canuso that treatment regulations in the Public Health Act are under review. Would the Minister, Mr. Speaker, please tell the House what has that review recommended? Is there a change in the supply of services to small communities?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the role that health practitioners can play in our health system is really one which the Premier's Commission in the Rainbow Report had some discussion on. At the present time, there is a limited number of things which a community health nurse can do with respect to treatment. That's simply the reality, not just in Alberta, but it exists elsewhere in our country. Enhancing the role, looking at the role of primary care, looking at the role of nursing in primary care, is clearly one of the reviews that is underway as a result of the Premier's Commission and other reviews. I don't have a simple answer for the honourable member except to say that the delivery of services to people in Canuso is as important to this Minister of Health as the delivery of services to a resident of downtown Calgary.
Redwater Andrew, followed by Vegreville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications. And Mr. Speaker, in the past while, from time to time, rural Albertans, and particularly some in my constituency in the Andrew area, have indicated difficulties with extended flat rate calling. And as Mr. Speaker knows, recently the Minister has indicated that an announcement would be made by June 15th with improvements to the program. And my question is this program going to continue as is, or will it be changed to eliminate some of the difficulties in these areas?
Mr. Speaker, Alberta does indeed have the most extensive extended flat rate calling routes throughout our province. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, not one of those routes is named after me. However, Mr. Speaker, we don't give out briefcases. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is quite correct, and I appreciate the representations that he and other colleagues have made to me over the past several months. There are indeed communities who are having difficulty in meeting the criteria that is established for the extended flat rate calling route to be implemented. And as a result of those representations, Mr. Speaker,
we have asked AGT to perform an extensive review of the extended flat rate program and to see whether or not some of the problems that the honourable member has mentioned could indeed be addressed. In the course of that review, which is still ongoing, Mr. Speaker, AGT, I'm pleased, did in fact make an announcement on Friday last for a new program, a program called Select Route. And it's a new program that will enable customers, AGT customers, to individually choose the communities within 100 kilometers that they would like to call and pay a special flat rate, individual flat rate in connection with that route. The Select Route offers the customers really two plans, Mr. Speaker. One is a 1-hour plan. The other is an unlimited calling plan. And in the case of the 1-hour plan, individuals and businesses will be able to pay a flat rate of $5 for an accumulated 1 hour of time with a 15-cent per minute increment thereafter over the 1 hour. On the unlimited calling, the rates are for the residents $25 a month and business $50 a month. Mr. Speaker, this new Select Route will come into effect in November of 1990 and indeed will provide individual choice for Albertans to have a special select extended flat rate calling amount for their individual choice and their individual routes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think my constituents and many rural Albertans will be pleased with this announcement, as it'll address some of their needs. But, Mr. Speaker, supplementary is, will the new program be accepted by CRTC as they will be the new regulator?
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say that we have the assurances that indeed all programs for rural subscribers, individual line service, extended flat rate calling, and the new Select Route will indeed become part of the CRTC regulatory process.
Vagerville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The announcement today by the Associate Minister of Agriculture that the seeding deadlines would be extended for farmers in the province will be welcomed as good news by those who are having problems with too much rain and those, like in my area of the province, that are suffering from too little. However, there are still very serious problems in the Peace River country, and I'd like to remind the Minister that there are thousands of farmers there who weren't able to harvest their crops in fall of 1989. Many of them lost their crop over the winter through a variety of different conditions, and now they find their land flooded. They're unable to seed a crop for 1990. What we have is many people in that area, Mr. Speaker, who will have essentially no income from their farming operations for at least a 2-year period. And I'm wondering when the Minister will recognize that the crop insurance program is just not adequate to deal with a disaster of this magnitude, and will come forward with an announcement of some new money to assist these people in the Peace River country who so desperately need it, money that's in addition to what the Minister of Public Safety announced in fall.
Mr. Speaker, certainly the member is correct that we have a situation in northern Alberta that is carryover from last year. And the Minister and I took the opportunity a week ago to tour the area very extensively and to meet with over 100 producers in that area to discuss their concerns, to ask their advice as to how best to deal with this situation. And I would remind the honourable member and other members that crop insurance is production driven, and that is what it is intended to be. It is an insurance program based on production. So it is obvious that you cannot address a problem, and an unusual problem, through crop insurance. And we will be continuing to work with the producers in that area as to the solution. The extension of the seeding deadline may indeed assist a number of producers in that area. The Peace River, great deal of it enjoys a very good growing season. And there is the possibility in some of the areas that they may yet be able to seed some canola and barley. In some of the areas, we recognize that it is extremely doubtful that there will be any seed in the ground. So crop insurance is an insurance program based on production. We addressed the disaster side of that issue on uninsurable items last fall, and I think the very positive program under disaster services, and explained to the producers at that time that we would assess the issue on insurable crops when a decision was made. And to keep that commitment made by the minister, myself, the premier, and Sexsmith, we are in that process now, working with the producers, with producer groups in the area.
Speaker, in 1986, when there was a serious flood affecting the Pembina River Valley and the North Saskatchewan River, there was a flood recovery program. And as well in 1987, when we had a serious tornado, there was a tornado recovery program, both of which received funding assistance from the federal government through the disaster financial assistance arrangements described in the annual report of the Minister of Public Safety Services. And I'd like to ask him what efforts he's expended, what he's done to lobby the federal government to make sure that they contribute some money to provide to the municipalities, homeowners, and farmers who are very seriously affected by this disaster. And we're not just talking about individual loss of income, we're talking about the economy of an entire region, Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the federal government has agreed to cost share with the province of Alberta in this very important program. They agreed to do that several months ago.
Thank you. Stony Plain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister of Advanced Education regarding the absorption of Westera Institute by NAIT. On his February 1st news release, he said every effort will be made to minimize the loss of jobs by faculty and administrative staff. On a statement on April 6th in this House, he assured us that a successful transition would occur. And in a letter to me, the Minister said, a recent letter, attempts to minimize the negative effects of reorganization appear to be successful. However, some individuals may have been left very difficult options. According to my information, that's a very huge understatement, Mr. Speaker, because over 50% of the employees have been offered completely unsatisfactory reassignments, which include changes from permanent to temporary positions, salary cuts, loss of jobs, and so on. Will the minister agree, that's my question, will the minister agree to lift the June 30th deadline for employee placements from Westera to NAIT so that the serious concerns of employees can be addressed and the reorganization can indeed be successful? Mr. Speaker, members will recall that on February the 1st I had announced the expansion of the role of the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology to encompass the programs of Westera, and that a transition team was appointed, and that finalization would be July the 1st. Mr. Speaker, I am frankly quite pleasantly surprised, where I thought there might be a reduction of some 30 personnel. The reduction indeed is less than 10, so I am quite happy with the results of that transition. And in direct response, no, Mr. Speaker, I'm not prepared to extend the effective date of the transition beyond July 1st.
Well, different data.
Oh boy, my information, Mr. Speaker, is quite different. My information is that 15 Westera staff have been downgraded from permanent to temporary positions, and 48 staff were offered positions and declined because they would have had to take significant cuts in wages. That comes out to 63. Given that the minister's promises about reorganization have not been lived up to, staff concerns have not been addressed, many jobs may be lost, and there appears to be a very, very different perception of what's in fact happening. Will the minister agree to implement an impartial, independent review board for employees of Westera, thereby guaranteeing that staff concerns are dealt with fairly and impartially? Mr. Speaker, the transition team that I have appointed, in my view, is impartial. I would point out that my information is the salary levels at Westera have been somewhat above those at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. And quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, I would point out the option. And that is, rather than taking a reduction in salary with a different assigned task, in most cases, if an institution were closed, those people wouldn't have a job, let alone a reduction in salary.
Thank you. The point of order is?
Speaker, I rise under Standing Order 13-2. Mr. Speaker, during the question period, you called me to order with a citation. I'm wondering if, Mr. Speaker, if hypothetical and pontificate were parliamentary phrases last night, why today there were some intervention on behalf of the chair, and I'd appreciate an explanation, sir.
At the time, the chair pointed out that with regard to the flow of question period, there really was no need to bring back the phrases which have been dealt with earlier in this session, and specifically last night, not only dealt with once, but twice. Now, the chair would also like to bring to the attention of the House another difficulty with procedure which occurred during question period today. The member for Edmonton Mill Woods did state during questioning, and I quote, "So it may come as some news to the minister that the government is now about to be served as a defendant in a $7 million lawsuit alleging negligence of his department brought on behalf of the children of one of the workers." The chair brings to the attention of the House the sub judice rule and the fact that the matter under the sub judice rule imposes certain conditions upon the member raising the question as well as the minister called upon to make reply. And it really is up to both the member and to the minister to know whether or not the member is sub judice. It is clear that even though the member for Edmonton Millwood said that an action is about to be served, that in actual fact it's come to the attention of the chair, appended to press release being distributed outside the House, that indeed there is the statement of claim, and the statement of claim is dated on June the 14th. So it appeared to be that the member for Edmonton Mill Woods knew full well that the matter was sub judice, raising it in question period. Sub judice is not a convention. It is a rule of this House. It has been consistently applied, and for the period 1978 to 1988, there have been 19 rulings in that regard. The chair respectfully requests the cooperation of all members, and in particular the member for Edmonton Mill Woods, with respect to question period in future. Orders of the day.